I'd like to first recognize and welcome our newest commissioner, Eli Conson. Thank you for being here. This is his very first meeting. He's a local student. Is that right, Eli?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not gonna. I am gonna put you on the spot, Eli. Can you just maybe give us a couple words about your background? Maybe where you go to school. What brought you to this commission and why you're interested in it. And is that cool? Just keep the button down.
Right. I'm Elijah Kunson, junior at Los Alamos High School. It's always been a dream of mine to help the environment. And in middle school, I got interested in political science. So I saw this as an opportunity to help the environment and learn more about local law. So, yes, that's why I'm here.
Great. Well, on behalf of everyone, the Pros Commission, welcome and thanks for your service. Okay, we'll now call the roll.
Commissioner Pinkstaff,
Here.
Commissioner Oler,
Here.
Commissioner Conson,
Here.
Commissioner Garland, Vice
Here.
Chair Cook, here, and Chair Moran.
Here.
Let the record show that all are present.
All right, we're going to move on to public communications, but before we do that, I want to recognize our new Director of Public Works, Rich Payne, who is going to grace us with a few words. Rich, thank you and welcome.
Chair Moran, members of the commission, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to come and introduce myself as your new Public Works Director. It's an honor to be able to work for the city in this capacity. Just a little bit of background, I've worked for the city. I just celebrated my 25th year in Public Works. I've spent some of that time in the parks and open space, but primarily my responsibilities were taking care of the infrastructure, including all the facilities, the fleet, the traffic infrastructure, and of course there's something else. Oh, of course, the streets. So the streets, facilities, fleet, and traffic infrastructure. So, and those responsibilities have kept me busy. I can tell you that this is a tremendous opportunity. I feel like I've been working with a great team out there at the courtyard with all the operational staff, and I'm looking forward to continue doing that with the engineering staff and collectively all of Public Works. In terms of some of the things I look forward to over the next few years is there's a lot of projects going on. There's a small one out at Heather Farm Park that's happening, and so I'm going to be spending a lot of time working on that project. In terms of the parks and open space, I know you're aware we've got some turf going in some of our parks and a lot of other amenities that we'll be working along with our regular stuff, all of our capital improvement projects and all those. But I just feel it a privilege to be able to represent such a dedicated staff. It goes without saying, when you drive into the city of Walnut Creek, there's something different. And I truly believe it's those small little nuances of a well-maintained infrastructure that makes this place special. And you notice it. Sometimes you're not certainly aware of it, but it's there. And I think there's a sense of security that comes with it. So, and that is, it doesn't happen by accident. There's a lot of dedicated employees that love what they do, and they take personal ownership, and it shows. And so I'm looking forward to leading this group and serving the public in this public works capacity. And hopefully I'll have an opportunity to work with all of you. So with that said, does anyone have any questions for me? Perfect. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Rich. Welcome. Okay, we're going to move on to public communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for comment on items not on the agenda. Under the Brown Act, the commission cannot act on items raised during public communications, but may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed, request clarification, or refer the item to staff. Does anyone present have any public communication? Seeing none, we will move on. And we're going to go right to item 3, which is presentation on the Walnut Creek watershed. Mr. Simmons.
Well, good evening. My name is Bob Simmons. I'm president of the Walnut Creek Watershed Council. I wish to thank you for allowing me to come and talk tonight about the Walnut Creek Watershed. I first started meeting with a group of people, including the former Public Works manager, back in 2011. And so there's been a long history of the involvement of the city of Walnut Creek in the watershed as well. I like to start with this particular quote because I think it is something that speaks to me, which is, if there's magic on this planet, it is contained in water. And a lot of what has happened since around 1950 is we tended to bury a lot of our water into culverts and things of that nature and put them into concrete channels. We did it for very good reasons. We were developing and all that, so it's not a criticism of what people did back then, but we're dealing with the situation we have now. What you have there is a photo that was taken in October 2021 after the major storm. It's a Chinook salmon that's trying to get up above the drop structure. You gotta get this. And basically that's a very complete barrier to fish passage. That's by Willow Pass Road, by the way. This is a picture of the Walnut Creek watershed. It is 146 square miles in size. It is the largest watershed in Contra Costa County. The Walnut Creek Watershed Council, which was incorporated in 2021, consists of 5 what we call creek stewardship groups, and they're all listed there. We at one stage had lines showing where they are, but actually some of them have overlapping jurisdictions, and but we're very pleased that we have that many. And we have one more that's just sort of created called the Friends of Tice Creek, which is focused in Rossmore, which does have some pretty significant erosion issues with regard to Tice Creek going down the golf course. I already talked, I wanted to come back to this one because what I want to do first as part of this is talk about what's happened to the watershed over the since the around 1960, let's say. And basically what happened is the flood control district and with the county flood control district and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers basically rebuilt the entire channel from Suisun Bay up to Ignacio Valley Road from 1965 to 71. This was the first, below this it's all earth and channel, but this is the first piece of concrete structure. I think I said already, it's just south of Willow Pass Road, and you can actually walk pretty close to it. This is drop structure number 2. They number them from the bottom of the drainage or bottom of the watershed up. This has a special significance for for some families because this is where the bodies of 2 young men were found back in, I think, 2011. And this is one of those barriers that just you can't get past when the high water is there. And it was, once they knew that that's where they had gone, they waited till the water dropped, and that's where they found them. Above this is about 2 miles, and by the way, it's about a mile north of Countrywood Shopping Center. And if you head north on Bancroft, and you see the bridge there, if you pull off, you can actually look down onto this particular drop structure. It's rather terrifying in a high storm, by the way, just for what that's worth. The water flow is pretty significant. 2 miles upstream of this is, 2 miles upstream is solid concrete. The channel bisects WCI, and if you visit WCI, you see the sign "Stay Out, Stay Alive," and those were put in after the 2 young men lost their lives. This is something most people have never seen. This is, on the right side, is the creek coming out of Civic Park. It is Walnut Creek. On the left side is the end of what's called the San Ramon Bypass. Now, the San Ramon Bypass was built in around 1990, and it was designed to completely eliminate the flooding of downtown Walnut Creek. And it achieved that spectacularly. We haven't had a flood in downtown Walnut Creek since this was built. And the Army Corps of Engineers did a great job of designing it to deal with high water flows. They didn't pay much attention to low water flows. And one of the things that has happened is the original channel of San Ramon Creek dries up in the summertime during low water flows because they didn't provide for those waters to go into the natural channel in terms of their design. They didn't do it quite well enough. And so one of the things we're working on as a watershed council, both is to, and I'll talk about it in a bit, so let me hold that for a bit. What you have here is a temporary coffer dam that is put in every year. The former director of public works for the city of Walnut Creek helped once in moving those rocks in place. So we're looking forward to the time that the current director of public works will come out and do that as well. Every June we do that, and it helps direct more water into the natural channel. The two grates you see above is how the water goes into the natural channel now. One of the things the Watershed Council is working on is the removal of something called the Arundodonax, as well as other invasive species. Arundodonax is common name is giant reed. It'll grow up to 4 inches a day and up to 25, 30 feet tall. It is both a fire threat and it is a flood threat. It is such a dense stand that it'll force to direct the water around it and sometimes into the opposing bank. And we had one landowner that said, and this is down in San Ramon, I don't want you to touch my arundo because it's protecting my soil, so we stayed away. We only work on consent of the property owner. 5 years later, he had lost his entire bank because arundo is a very shallow-rooted species and it doesn't hold soil at all. This particular picture is across from the library, and you can see in sort of the middle part, lower left, where the arundo is going across the stream. Next year, that will come over onto the city property if we don't deal with it. I'm going to change topics a little, and this has, let me see if I can do this correctly. I'm not seeing the red spot. Pressing the middle button? Yeah, I think I am. There you go. There you go. Okay, right about there, that is the natural lake in Heather Farm Park. This was a map that is in the Philip Burton Library, and the name of the lake on the map is Laguna de, and I won't even try to murder that last name. I mention this because I'm pretty sure, because I'm familiar with a lot of the watershed, that there is no name of any water feature any place in the watershed that reflects the first peoples that lived and settled in this area. And this is actually, Laguna is obviously not a native name, but this was the people who were back then tried to represent the tribe, the Chupcan band, that lived in this area and actively used that natural lake. And it used to be much larger than it is now. All right, what are we doing? We are trying to create a restoration plan, a Walnut Creek Watershed Restoration Plan. It is the first time anybody has ever done this for the Walnut Creek watershed. We have identified over 80 sites, and let me back up for a second. About 4 years ago, the Flood Control District completed what's called the Lower Walnut Creek Project. It is the first 4 miles of Walnut Creek as it comes from Suisun Bay. It's designed to take those huge flows that come in the wintertime, and it's also a tidal estuary. So it does both, and and they planted thousands, tens of thousands of native plants, and it's really a nice thing. And sometime over the next year, John Muir Land Trust was given the, took on the obligation to handle the public access to that, and you will see this area open up. As we were identifying all of the sites that we did, and we believe, by the way, we only scratched the surface, we identified over 80. And we've prioritized them into high and medium, and but it's only in the areas that we live in. We haven't begun to touch the upper areas. We have a couple in Walnut Creek. Those 2 grates are one of them because we want to arrange for natural passages, but Hazard Pond is on it, Indian Pond is on it, and there's a few other sites within Walnut Creek that are on that. The purpose of the plan is to identify opportunities. We're not working off on left field. Well, maybe we are, but we're working with the flood control district, the resource conservation district, and resource and creek stewardship groups to develop in a collaborative approach to try and put this plan together, and it meets the requirement of the water board. So the timeline, we're going to submit our report to the flood control district around November 1st. The flood control district has to submit it to the water board to comply with one of its requirements. Back in about 3 months ago, because we were really interested in exploring alternatives for fish passage around drop structure number 1, because of our, I'm going to use the term quiet advocacy, the flood control district knew we were interested in arranging for fish passage around it and sent a letter to the Corps of Engineers saying, and there's a section of federal law that allows this, would you look at alternatives for fish passage around at that drop 1? They did, and we hope to learn in January that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is going to study alternatives for fish passage around drop 1. It won't bring it all the way up to Walnut Creek, and by the way, you could fish in downtown Walnut Creek in the 1940s. You could still go fishing there now, there just isn't any fish. The other thing is we applied for a grant of $300,000 to complete our planning process, and from the Bureau of Reclamation, and we will hear about that in September. They take a long time to make their decisions on grants, but it's a very competitive grant, so we're hopeful, but just have to see what they do. So I'm almost done. Well, how can you help? You can help identify restoration opportunities. This is our restoration effort is a living document. It's not something that, we're going to submit it on November 1 and there's never going to be another restoration site looked at again. But it will guide restoration activities in our watershed for 20 to 30 years. I'm pretty confident about that. You can become a creek steward. Just contact me if you're interested in that. And you can be a creek advocate, which is something we really need a lot more interest, not just from the public, but from the cities and the towns. And I'm appreciative for the support that we've been getting from the city with regard to the things that we're doing. I like to finish with this. This is in Civic Park. This is right by the senior center. It's one of the first sites that we actually restored. And I was there one day and saw this dad with 2 young kids. And I said, I'd really like to take a picture. Can I take a picture? And he said yes, but when the older girl heard the word picture, she turned around and posed. And he knew I didn't want any faces on it, so he said, what are the ducks doing? It's one of the things that's happened with what we've done, and you can see it if you do a creek walk. You can see the creek now from the creek walk, and you couldn't 2 years ago. Not only that, but what is also happening is the Walnut Creek Senior Club has a group of native plant gardeners. It doesn't look like much now because native plants in October don't look like much, but along that fence are a lot of native plants. In addition to removing the Arundodonyx that was there, we removed a lot of English ivy, and the person that leads that project has seen an explosion of butterflies, because in addition to English ivy being wonderful habitat for rats, it also interferes with the biological life of butterflies. And so by removing the English ivy, all of a sudden it enabled the butterflies to come back. And when you have the butterflies come back, it means there's more food for the birds, and the whole nature changed. So I didn't put any contact information on here, but I'd be glad, I think you know how to reach me. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have, and you can ask them later as well, and we'd be glad for any support that you can provide, because we think what we're doing is pretty important, and some of us won't be around to see the results, but we think this is an important thing to do to try to improve our creek and create a healthier watershed. So thank you for allowing me to speak. Appreciate it.
Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
One, I had no idea that we had Chinook salmon in Walnut Creek. Are there?
Not up here in the city of Walnut Creek because they can't get past the
Because they
drop
can't get
structures.
past, right, but they do try to come up.
They try, and but that's somebody that was really knowledgeable about it and saw one steelhead get up, because steelhead are stronger leapers, but hasn't seen anything else. And if the water level is just right, then they might be able to. I have another slide where it's a video actually where you hear the fish slap against the wall, and the guy doing it said, "Oh, that hurt." So. But yeah, there's Chinook and there's steelhead that come to the base. They're in October 21. They were also in Grayson Creek, and they couldn't get above either one. There's not a drop structure; it's a different type of structure in Grayson Creek. But yes, there are. This was a salmon creek.
And my other question is, so in the areas that are actually in the city of Walnut Creek, so do you partner with the city and the work they do, or is that they're more interested in the infrastructure element and you're taking a room out?
Let me answer the first question and not the second part of that question, because we've gotten a lot of nice support. I mean, I'll use Mike. When Mike saw what we were doing and saw the public reaction to it, he found a way to provide some resources to us so we could continue the work. We have now removed, but it's very expensive, and so we had to get some other grants. We got a grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation of about $90,000 for other sites in the watershed, not just in Walnut Creek. And so we have made one attack at all of the stands of Arundo. Arundo is incredibly perseverant, and so we have to be equally, and it does take some chemicals as well, but we're careful about how we apply it. But it'll take probably 3 years to completely eliminate it. But at the same time, we're starting to plant, and we're removing the ivy as well. And if you go to walk along that creek walk, particularly between the Civic Park Bridge and the Senior Center, you will see a lot of the ivy has been removed, and you can see actually some stands of Arundo, because we cut them about 3 weeks ago, and they regrow really fast, but they're not as big as they were. And basically what happens is each time you attack them, you kind of reduce their vigor.
Well,
Okay.
thanks for coming and presenting.
Thank
Really
you.
enjoyed this.
All right.
Bob, before you go,
Oh,
I
I didn't
wanted-
hear another hand. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for not only this presentation, but couple 3 years ago, the presentation on the lake issues and riparian issues that have, I think, led to some great plans that Mike Vickers and staff have come up with that are going to be incorporated into the changes going on at Heather Farm around the community center and aquatic center and some things going on there. So thank you for incentivizing us to get involved in that, and also hopefully your presentation leads to more involvement in our creek.
I hope so, and I appreciate your thoughts. And I did include the slide of the lake because I hope that 2 years from now, when it's redone, it won't be the nature lake.
Wait, one more thing, Bob.
Sorry.
I know you didn't have your personal phone number on the slide, but if there's somebody watching at home and they're interested in getting involved, can they Google?
So the best way is probably email with Bob Simmons, all one word, 2866@gmail.com.
Okay.
I tend not to answer phone calls from numbers I don't recognize.
Why? I don't blame you.
Yeah, but emails are real easy, and I do get some of those. And we will have, we're really actually looking for people willing to become creek stewards, and it's not a every day or even every month thing. It's just, but it's something that we could use some help with the ivy and other things. So, and the planting that we want to do later this year and in future years. So, thank you for that question.
Yeah. Oh, stay there. You're not done yet.
Oh, I didn't want to give Mike a chance to talk.
This is probably out of turn, but I'm going to bring it up anyways. This commission has supported over the last two capital
Yeah.
budget cycles, putting money into the efforts that you're mostly leading. Leslie Hunt is also helping with those. So it's this body that's making this stuff happen. It's not necessarily Public Works. We get the opportunity to put the budget together, but your support has gone a long ways. And I'm sure as we move into the spring of 25, and we're back at the capital budget exercise again, we might see Bob here, maybe.
I got lots of ideas to
for
spend
his
money.
Ideas, so, yeah.
Mike, thank you for mentioning that, and thank you to the members of the Pros Commission for your past support. We really appreciate it, but we're putting your money to really good results, so thank you.
I have one last question. Do you have a public website for the work?
Oh, I am so disappointed I didn't mention that one. wcwatershed.org.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. And I move to approve the minutes of the pro special meeting last month, September 9th, 2024. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Okay, roll call. Vice Chair Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Oler,
Yes.
Commissioner Pinkstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Garland,
Yes.
and Chair Moran.
Yes, and just a quick note, our newest commissioner, because he wasn't here, that's why you don't get a vote on the minutes, but you soon will.
The minutes pass unanimously.
Next is the Racket Sports Annual Report. Yes?
It's just the consent item.
Oh, the consent item on the rec, okay. Do we need to approve that?
Yeah.
Okay, another motion to approve the Racket Sports Annual Report, also of last month. Don't all jump at once.
May I ask a question first?
Sure.
The data in the report was from 2023. Was that calendar year?
Yes.
Okay. I move to approve the report.
Seconded.
Great, I'll take roll. Commissioner Garland,
Yes?
Chair Moran,
Yes.
Chair Pinkstaff, or sorry, Commissioner Pinkstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Oler,
Yes.
Commissioner Conson,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Cook.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
All right, next on the agenda is an item for the commission consideration, the Pros Commission Staff Report. And we're starting with the Civic and Walden Parks Playground Update.
Good evening, Mike Vickers, Interim Assistant Public Works Director, and normally I'm standing up at the lectern, but I'm going to try and do this sitting down, which is a little uncomfortable for me, so bear with me. But this is a project. There we go. So this project was recommended by the Pros Commission going into this fiscal cycle. So in spring of '23, when we were going through the capital budget, this body recommended we set aside $500,000 of park and lieu funding to update the Civic Park Playground and the Walden Park Playground. And so as part of this process that we're bringing forward, the most important aspect to this tonight is the public outreach plan. Some of you remember, I don't believe any of you were on the commission at the time, but when we were putting together the All Abilities Playground, that project actually started back in 2012 and opened in 2014. We had a pretty robust subcommittee, and we're presenting fairly frequently with the Pros Commission, and did a fair amount of public outreach. And we want to take that same approach this year. As many of us know, probably in the downtown area, we've seen a big change in housing, and updating this playground and trying to bring some newer amenities, some newer ideas to the community will be really beneficial. And if you've been out at Walden Park, there's a lot of condos and apartments over in that area as well, along with a new development that is just a couple blocks away. That has quite a bit of high-density housing. So both of these playgrounds are heavily impacted daily. So as I mentioned, we started the funding process back in the spring of '23. Recommendation from Pros Council agreed and put $500,000 of park and lieu money aside, with the whole goal, as I've mentioned, I jumped a little bit ahead of myself, is to increase the usage of the park and bring some new amenities. Public outreach is going to be key, and the goal with everything that we do in our parks is to be as inclusive as possible. So the process itself, like we do with everything throughout the city of Walnut Creek, we have an MMP, a maintenance master plan, where we actually have identified every item throughout the city, and we have that logged with a what's the best term, like a end of life date or useful life date. And so when we're setting our budgets, we go through our MMP and look at all of the items that need to be replaced that are coming up at the end of their useful life and start budgeting for those. These two playgrounds were built in '97, so they're over 25 years old now, if I'm doing the math right. So we think these are important pieces. So that's one of the reasons ended up on the capital budget. As I've talked about, we're going to talk a little bit more about public outreach, the importance of community feedback, and then we'll be reporting back to the commission on a number of times in terms of selection of design, amenities, and getting you guys updated and keeping you updated on the feedback we're getting from the community. So this is just a look at some of the worn out pieces. I will tell you, back in 2015, we went through both of these parks and made some updates to a few of the amenities. There were some ADA laws that changed at that time, and we were required to make some improvements. But if you were out there in person, these pictures aren't going to do it justice. But a lot of this equipment is really it's seen a lot of usage over the years, and the elements as well. So this is Civic Park 2 to 5, and 2 to 5, for those of you who don't know, playgrounds are categorized in age, so 2 to 5 years old for children, and then 5 to 12 years old. And to give you a better example, if you're out at Heather Farm Park, the 2 to 5 is the 5 to 12 is the large ramp structure. And then the 2 to 5 is, what would that be, just to the south of it. And best practices are to have a physical element break the two up. And that's why we planted that's why we installed those mounds in between those two playgrounds. So there's clear definition between what's a 5 to 12 and a 2 to 5. So this is Civic Park. Well, the other one was 2 to 5. This is more the 5 to 12 side. You can see the handrails are getting worn out. This is the physical barrier, if you were out there, the walking path that separates the two. This is we're getting ready to patch these, but you can see these would obviously be trip hazards as little kids are running around. More wear and tear on some of the brackets and elements. You see I have the fencing there. What's interesting about the fencing is a little bit of a challenge. Part of it is a wrought iron fence, a decorative fence, and then the backside is a wooden fence, as you see here. And what we find, unfortunately, is some of the unhoused, when they need to keep warm, they kick the fence in and use the wood to burn. And so we're going to be, as part of this project, we're going to be proposing installing the wrought iron fence throughout the playground. This is a look at the 2 to 5 here at Walden Park. Walden Playground is obviously pretty small. One of the biggest benefits we see in our park, whether it's at Heather Farm, Arbolado, Larkey has it, here at Civic Park, is the sand features. The little kids really love the sand features, and whenever we can pull a water element into it, it's a huge benefit. It just gives them one more opportunity, one more play opportunity. And this equipment was installed in 2014 or 2015. It's well manufactured, hardy equipment. You mix the sand with it, and it gets worn out pretty quick. And I think going into this process, I think we can do a little better job with the design and maybe add some more additional features. The one part, the picture on the far right there with the little house, kids love to hide, right, from their parents and be able to peek out and those types of things. So it's a lot of fun to have those little schoolhouses there. Same thing here at Walden. This is the 5 to 12. You can see some of the age. You see the swing set in the middle. We have plans to keep the swing set both at Walden and at Civic Park for budgetary purposes, with the whole thought of adding some different type of seats. They have what are called generational seats, or some people refer to them as iPhone seats, where the parent can sit with the child as they're swinging it back and forth, those types of things. And then maybe there's an opportunity for some additional ADA type seating that is very, very popular at Heather Farm Park. So as I mentioned, big part of this process is the public outreach. And we would like to somewhat model it after the successes we had at Heather Farm, but also other activities that have taken place around the city, whether it's through traffic engineering or those types of things. So pop-ups, and what I mean by pop-ups is really be out there on site with the table and chairs and be able to talk to the residents. Not everybody wants to go home and get online or click a QR code and give your feedback. Sometimes they can just verbalize it while they're there monitoring their kids or their loved ones. Social media, obviously, we can't do anything without social media nowadays, so we will have QR codes and those types of things, an online survey, and get to the farmers market on a number of occasions. And, you know, this is part of the discussion. You guys may have some other ideas as well. And they may not all come out tonight, but, you know, as you're thinking about this type of thing, please follow up with us, because the more people we can reach, the better the design is going to be by far. There are, and I'm sure many of you have seen them over the years, different types of themes that you can have, whether it's the firehouse theme or the airport theme, the dinosaurs, and those types of things. These playgrounds they're not getting any cheaper. You know, $500,000 is a lot of money, but doesn't go a long ways in building playgrounds. And if I go back, yeah, let me go back a slide. No, sorry, it's the next slide. Resilient surface is fantastic because you don't need the same amount of maintenance, but there's an expense to it. And eventually wears out quicker than bark. And it's a lot more expensive than bark, so that's certainly going to be part of the discussion. And we don't have to go with a themed approach. We can go with standard equipment and pull in a whole bunch of different amenities that maybe the community is interested in. And so, not to jump too far ahead, but the thought process is if we have a pop-up and we're out there with a table, we're going to have maybe pre-designed with input from all of the commission. You know, are we going to pick a theme? Are we not going to pick a theme? If so, if we go with a theme from the designer, maybe we throw three options out there, along with 15 different amenities or something to give people something to pick at, right? Instead of just having them do their own research and come up with it. You know, we have the boulders out there at Civic Park. There might be an opportunity to either remove them or maybe modify them and put some of these rope ladders that are in there now. If I do a fair amount of surveying of different parks and different communities, I go to these shows, and there's different trends. And right now, one of the trends are these different rope features. I'm not quite sure why. It's just maybe it's cheaper for the manufacturers to build, and so you can kind of get more money for your buck, that type of thing. So shade. You know, I think we all value shade, especially over the last week. Shade is really expensive, so it's going to have to be something that we consider going through this process. And then these are what we call the play panels, where you see the three girls there at the educational panels or the musical panels. So lots of options, and we'll be there with a number of options numbered so that people can weigh in on what their favorite thoughts are. So before I finish up with the action for tonight, there's other we don't foresee the footprint of either one of the parks changing, just for budgetary purposes. But if you can envision Civic Park, right now it's completely enclosed in a concrete retaining wall, I'll just call it that. There's options to make that concrete retaining wall an amenity by putting seats along there, and then you can attach shade so that the parents are actually sitting in the shade in some of these areas. So taking advantage of what's out there, instead of having to build something from scratch in order to add some seating. And so we're going to try and get creative in that fashion as well. There's a lawn area out in front of the Civic Park that gets heavily used. It's a natural turf lawn. Is there an option to maybe go with synthetic turf? We don't know. We'd have to figure that out, price it out. Synthetic turf is warm. Mind you, there's a fair amount of shade trees over there. So it's those types of conversations that we're going to have with the community and then be able to bring back to the commission and get more information on. We do have a budget, right? It doesn't mean that we, as a group, that we get the feedback that says, hey, potentially we need X more dollars, and that'll be up for the commission to make the recommendation to council that we need additional money, or not. So just to share that with you. So I know I moved through that pretty quickly, but your action for tonight is to provide comment on the proposed playground equipment replacement project, the process, and the public outreach plan for the two parks. Now I'll open it up to questions.
Fellow commissioners, does anyone have any questions?
I just was curious, Mike, to get a rough timeline idea of the kind of processes that would lead to completion.
So we would like to start the public outreach portion in November, assuming we leave this meeting today and everyone's happy with this approach. It could be, hey, we're not totally comfortable with this approach. Can you come back in December and maybe consider these items? If we leave here today, we would probably start the public outreach process in November. There are some grants that are going around right now. There's a major playground company called Game Time, who's purchased a lot of these smaller companies. You just don't recognize that they're all owned by the bigger party. And they have some grants that we're looking into right now to maybe make our dollar go a little bit further. I don't know enough about those grants to know when the application has to be in and when that funding is going to become available. But I feel like we're going to have a pretty good shot at it. So I'll get more information, and maybe I can send that out on a weekly to keep you guys updated, since we're not going to meet again until December. But we want to jump into it pretty soon. We can select a designer, including Game Time, and the grant. Like I said, I don't know enough about it, so I'm not going to speak very intelligently about it. But the grant may be as simple as, if the city is willing to put in this much funds, we're going to match it with this much funds, and it's not as competitive as a lot of other grants. So more to come on that, but sooner than later. We'd like to get this rolling.
And, carry it on to contracting and construction. What are we talking, another year, 18 months?
I would say a year, and I don't want to sound too aggressive. I mean, it would be great if we were going into the summer and finalizing the design, getting the equipment ordered. We don't want to shut down the parks in the summertime, but, maybe in the September, October range, we can be in construction while most kids are at school. Tackle one park at a time so that people still have an opportunity to go to different locations. So Walden, you guys have all seen Walden. The space over there is really quite small, so it's not a huge lift. And I think we'll find that the majority of our focus and funding will probably be at Civic. Civic is next to Heather Farm Park, is our most used, most well-attended park that we have in the city. So is that good? Yep.
So Mike, do you need our comments right now, or is there a deadline for comments for the commissioners?
Yeah, so we'll finish up the questions.
Okay.
There's no one here for public comment, and then you guys can provide comment if that works for you, Chair.
I think what you're getting at is it's a now thing more than anything. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, I'm certainly can follow up with Mike, after the fact. But if you have something to say, don't hold your breath. Yeah.
I'll just give some feedback, because I have a lot of fond memory, especially with Civic Park. My children, now they're in college, but we spend a lot of time there, especially that sand area, that play area. I would like to see either expanded or, at least retain what they have, because with the water feature and the sand, they spend a lot of good, memorable, good time there, like work, with other kids and by themselves. But I do remember when it's really hot, and some kind of shade over the sand play area would be nice. Also, I'm very intrigued by the swing, the new design, because it used to be just either the baby or the kid or adults. So I think that's a great idea, the new design you just mentioned, the parent and the child thing. But yeah, I just remember that sand play area. If we can maintain it or expand it and have definitely the water feature there, and perhaps some shade. Shade will be nice. And I don't know if there's like wash off area. We could the bathroom. I know it's right there. They will go in and kind of clean their hands and stuff. But
We recently, by recently, I mean within the last year and a half, added what's referred to as a jug filler. It's a smaller unit. You hit the button like you were going to fill up a big igloo.
Okay.
For the kids to fill up buckets, but also for the parents to wash their feet off and those types of things. So we're learning and adding some of these things as well. So
yeah, that's just my initial feedback about the Civic Park.
great.
I have a couple comments. We'll mix comments with questions, right? Okay. So on the public outreach, are there no, I don't know, like a homeowners kind of group that, or a place to have a more formal meeting? The only reason why I like the pop-up concept is getting input, but then how do they ever get to know what became of the comments they gave? Do they have to come to our meeting to learn that, or will you post it on social media? I'm asking you, can you elaborate on that, how that works? I mean, because I think it's always frustrating for people to give comments and not see how their comments were addressed or dealt with. And since we're not having some kind of formal process, he said there probably wouldn't be like a big meeting or anything like that, or a charrette or a workshop or anything like that.
I'll give an example. Back in 2012 or 2013, when we were planning on installing the disc golf course at Walden Park, we reached out to the other 4 or 5 HOAs in that area, had them reached out well in advance so they could put it in their newsletter. We also posted information asking for comments and asking them to come to the pros meeting or at least provide comments to the commissioners with a number of HOAs, and it's going to be the same with the downtown, right? If we're reaching out to these apartment complexes or condo complexes down here, it's probably going to be easier to have them come to this type of meeting. And as I'm updating and sharing feedback from the community, I can be able to group the topics. I can do it during that time to let them hear, or they can watch it at a later date, since they're televised and that type of thing.
Okay, great. No, that's good. So there's going to be some give and take, not just getting comments from them, like, because they filled out a survey online.
Yes.
Right, okay. And that's good. So you'll use our commission in the normal course of our review of things to invite them
Yes.
as well. Good,
Yeah.
okay, good. And I'm not really big on the theme concept. I don't think these kinds of playgrounds need a theme. I think kids just want to run around and be crazy. And the kind of features you were showing in those pictures, I think, are all good. I mean, I remember my son playing in all those kinds of, situations. But yeah, so I would say, particularly, I'm assuming if you're going to get a giant dinosaur, it's going to cost you more money. I don't know the value of having a giant dinosaur. Or, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
to me, this is a personal opinion. I'm not big on the theme.
Something more free-flowing.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't know this to be fact, but I'm fairly certain the themes are a little higher in cost.
Plus
As opposed to
they're
something.
dated sometimes. It's,
That's what we're facing now.
These are-
Oh, you mean the themes
the
themselves
themes
are
can
outdated?
end up
Yeah.
being dated, sort of, you know what I mean? So I kind of feel like it's better to just sort of go with sort of more tried and true play structures. Anyway, that's my another opinion. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I think Commissioner Garland was getting at the costs involved in some of these, adding things that may not add a lot of value. And in regards to the cost, does the new high density project near Walden contribute money to these projects, as it's county property? But
Yeah, unfortunately, the county collects park and lieu funds, but it goes into the county.
Okay.
It doesn't, so, and that, as
even
you
though the
mentioned-
close proximity, you
Yeah.
can't say, hey, kick down for the local guy. No. Okay. Curious. Civic Park is my impression there that during like winter and wet months that there's been some drainage issues there. Is that a fair statement?
There has been on the turf, but not in the playground. We've
Right,
not,
on the turf.
Yeah.
And that's why when you mentioned synthetic turf, that was appealing, but I know there's a cost associated with that.
Yeah, the soils over there, they don't drain real well, and they tend to hold the water instead of let it percolate through. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
been a challenge.
Yeah. And then Larky's not on your list because have they been updated more frequently in terms of that playground?
Yeah, so there's two playground structures at Larky. One close to the Lindsay Wildlife Museum, which is went in 2014 or 2015, right around the same time we opened up Heather. So that one's 10 years old. And then the what do we call the upper one? It's still in decent condition at this point, and we also made some improvements, more so ADA improvements, back around the same time we installed the other one around 2014, 2015.
Okay. Yeah, that's primarily my comments. A lot of good times there with the kids.
Yeah.
Yes, I suppose one of the ways to kind of cut costs in terms of the shade. Well, you said earlier about the shading. I don't really see how some of it, like specifically for Walden Park, I don't see how shading is exactly necessary because it's a very forested area due to the abundance of trees there. One can kind of say the same for Civic. Although Civic does have more sunny areas, I just feel like maintaining some of the trees there would be a way to kind of cut costs. Yes, that's all my comments for now.
Thank you.
I just thought about, because Bob just made that presentation, is there any opportunity to integrate what the Watershed Council is trying to do? I know that's on one side of the park, and then some of the concepts into the playground idea, so the kids and the parents, especially when the parents observing the kids or when they hang out, they can, get some exposure to the whole restoration plan that's going on in the city.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Where I thought initially you were going with that is to maybe we could have some whether play panels or some elements out there that were more educational in terms of nature based. But it sounds like you're looking to, hey, you can go play in the playground, and then you can walk over and walk along the creek walk and that type of thing. And maybe is that where you're going with that?
Obviously, there's an opportunity to do that, but also if you can bring that piece, the educational piece of the restoration work into the playground, either the design or the games or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Good.
Absolutely.
I do have one more.
oh,
Sorry,
please.
is that okay?
Yeah.
So, again, this is sort of my opinion, but I'm really not in favor of plastic grass. And I know there are better materials these days than they ever were, like when I was growing up. But as much as we can avoid putting in artificial turf at Civic Park, I like real grass. And even if it's soggy, it's still better than, a puddle on a field of artificial turf. So I also would point out, I know we're doing it at Heather Farm for a variety of reasons, but there are some cities in I think Santa Rosa or somewhere up in that area, Sonoma and maybe Marin, I forget, that have actually are going the opposite direction. They're making decisions to say, no, this is putting chemicals and breaks down, and I don't know. So I know we made a decision based on a lot of input from a lot of people for a lot of good reasons related to the sports and that particular use. But the park, this isn't a sports field. This is a city park. So I don't know. I would like to stay with grass, but you probably should get people to weigh in on that, at the meetings. But
Yeah, and it's, we get lots of feedback for lots of different reasons in our parks. And it's never have I heard of one comment coming to me about the natural turf around the playground not being ideal for laying on. I mean, most people, when they go out there, they're bringing blankets and those types of things to begin with. And it does have that moisture element that you're likely going to lose if you put the plastic grass out there. So I haven't got that feedback from the community. It was just an option that I was bringing. But yeah, understood. Thank you.
I just a quick validation. I think your outline structure process for community input and everything else, and the processes you've discussed with us tonight are appropriate, and I anticipate that will help with a really good plan. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Quick question and then a few comments. Does Walden have also like a 2 to 5 and then a 5 to 12 section?
Yes. The 2 to 5 is basically the sand portion, and then the 5 to 12 is the structure.
And the thought would be to keep both of those philosophies at the New Walden and New Civic, right? Like have a 2 to 5 and a 5 to 12, or some varying degree of. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's important just because, as has been pointed out, there's about 1,000 new units now than there weren't in 1997 in both places, with different ages of kids and different needs. And to that point, what you had said about places to maybe sit, around the retaining wall, I think it's important to keep that in mind because the number of people of varying ages that are going to be coming there in the next few decades is only probably going to grow. And I know that when as a parent of young kids, when we go to the park, I want to sit down, right? So there's places to and just hang out, and so I'm not standing around just watching them running. It's more of like a family place to sit and visit, and if there are options for the adults or grandma and grandpa to have a nice spot, because Civic Park has benches and so forth, but a lot of times you're kind of looking around going, where am I going to position myself as the kids are, especially if they're older, they're going to be there for a long time. So just multi-generational kind of amenities for people to just be there rather than a place to kill 5 minutes, right, on the swing set. And to that point, the swing set, in my opinion, and I'm sure everyone else here with who has the children who are young ones, is that's kind of like the centerpiece, right? That's what everybody remembers, right, about taking them to the park. And then the last thing I wanted to say was, I think when you guys are doing the public outreach, what I really liked was the idea of showing them what's out there, right? You know what's out there because you're an expert. I really don't. And if I'm just average parent, I might think, oh, that's cool, but I have to kind of be shown that, I think, and that'll prompt, I think, a good conversation with, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Whether it's a, theme, no theme, I kind of would agree with Commissioner Garland that while themes are cool and it's not something that we shouldn't not do, but the idea is a lot of things for everybody to feel like they have access to it, and like the ropes and one of the biggest things at Civic Park for my kids was the boulders that you can climb on, right? So stuff like that that's almost like unique. But I'm interested to find out what people have to say.
Yeah, that's good feedback because, I mean, if we can think of it, they've already created it, right? And so you can have sections of elements or components. These are all the play panels. These are a type of climbers, those types of things, and let them, oh, I'm not interested in climbers, I'm more interested in educational, and they can go straight to that section and identify what they like about that and give them, it's probably, you don't want to overwhelm them, but you want to make sure you're presenting a lot of different ideas so that they're getting the whole drift. They're not showing up at the exhibit halls and looking into this stuff either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? I'm going to formally ask if anyone, member of the public, has any any comments or questions for us? And seeing none, I'll throw it back to the commissioners to respond on the public comment that we didn't just get. And so after that, now we're,
Can I just ask for one
Yeah,
more thing?
of course.
So I just want to, Art gave me some feedback on the public outreach approach. Is everybody comfortable with the approach? Yeah, sounds like, oh,
I'm comfortable with it. Does the city use Nextdoor social media app as a,
absolutely.
okay.
And that would be one of the social media opportunities that we'll reach out to. Certainly, well, we'll do it citywide, but certainly for the downtown community and the Walden community for sure. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
I don't think we need to take we're not going to pass a resolution or a vote or anything like that. I think that was good feedback from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, moving right along, any commissioners' reports? Okay, seeing none. Staff reports.
The only staff report I have, let me see. You know, the only item I have for you tonight is just a reminder of Community Service Day that's taking place this Saturday. If you haven't been on the city's website to sign up for a project, you can do that right through walnut-creek.org. And I think there's over 40 different projects, lots of them in our parks, some in the open space and libraries and schools, and there's always lots of opportunity. The program's really well run. I think this is the 12th year of that program, and it remains successful. It's one of the reasons the group keeps doing it. So if you haven't signed up, we would love to get you out there, get your support. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I guess that's it. This concludes the October 7th, 2024 Pros Commission regular meeting, and we are adjourned until the December 2nd, 2024 scheduled meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, we couldn't get a picture and put it on the site until we got the waiver. I get this to Susie. Thank you.
All right, man, thank
All right, see ya.